The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John.
Glory to you, Lord.
Now a man was ill, Lazarus from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who had anointed the Lord with perfumed oil and dried his feet with her hair. It was her brother Lazarus who was ill. So the sisters sent word to Jesus, saying, "Master, the one you love is ill." When Jesus heard this, he said, "This illness is not to end in death, but is for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified through it." Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that he was ill, he remained for 2 days in the place where he was. Then after this, he said to his disciples, "Let us go back to Judea." The disciples said to him, "Rabbi, the Jews were just trying to stone you, and you want to go back there?" Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours in a day? If one walks during the day, he does not stumble, because he sees the light of this world. But if one walks at night, he stumbles, because the light is not in him." He said this, and then told them, "Our friend Lazarus is asleep, but I am going to awaken him." So the disciples said to him, "Master, if he is asleep, he will be saved." But Jesus was talking about his death, while they thought that he meant ordinary sleep. So then Jesus said to them clearly, "Lazarus has died, and I am glad for you that I was not there, that you may believe. Let us go to him." So Thomas, called Didymus, said to his fellow disciples, "Let us also go to die with him." When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, only about 2 miles away, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them about their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him, but Mary sat at home. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise." Martha said to him, "I know he will rise in the resurrection on the last day." Jesus told her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even if he dies, will live. And whoever who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord. I have come to believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who is coming into the world." When she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary secretly, saying, "The teacher is here and is asking for you." As soon as she heard this, she rose quickly and went to him, for Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still where Martha had met him. So when the Jews who were with her in the house comforting her saw Mary get up quickly and go out, they followed her, presuming that she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her weeping, he became perturbed and deeply troubled, and said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Sir, come and see." And Jesus wept. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Could not the one who opened the eyes of the blind man have done something so this man would not have died?" So Jesus, perturbed again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay across it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the dead man's sister, said to him, "Lord, by now there will be a stench. He has been dead for 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone, and Jesus raised his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you for hearing me. I know that you always hear me. But because of the crowd here, I have said this, that they may believe that you sent me." And when he had said this, he cried out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The dead man came out, tied hand and foot with burial bands, and his face was wrapped in a cloth. So Jesus said to them, "Untie him and let him go." Now many of the Jews who had come to Mary and seen what had been done began to believe in him. The Gospel of the Lord.
When I was in high school, there was a famous college football player. You may have heard of him. His name is Tim Tebow. And I remember being a senior in high school and watching the SEC championship game where the University of Florida, where Tim Tebow played, they were getting blown out by Alabama. And near the end of the game, Tim Tebow is sitting on the bench. And the cameras are catching him, and he's crying. He's weeping. You can see the tears come down his face. And just to provide a little bit of context, the year before, Florida had won the national championship with Tim Tebow as their quarterback. And in 2007, Tim Tebow himself won the Heisman Trophy, the greatest singular honor that is bestowed upon one college player every year. But in this moment, all anyone could focus on was Tim Tebow crying. And it almost was like, why is he crying? Like, we think our athletes are these larger-than-life people, these larger-than-life characters, almost like these superhumans with these unbelievable gifts and talents. And then we see them show emotion, and it can confuse us. It can interest us. It can perplex us to how this person who has all the God-given talent and ability in the world can show emotion. Tim Tebow was crying in that moment because he knew what he had lost. And that's why we cry, because we cry when we lose. And this is what happens, this is what we hear in our gospel today. That in the midst of this very long gospel, there is one verse that always sticks out. In fact, it's the smallest verse, it's the shortest verse in the entire gospel. It's just 2 words. Jesus wept. Now, of course, we hear throughout Scripture about other prominent figures in the Bible who cry, who weep. We hear about Abraham, upon hearing that his wife Sarah had died, goes to the tent where her body is and begins to weep profusely. We hear about King David, whose very own son Absalom was taking up arms against him, fighting a battle against him. And upon hearing that Absalom had died, David cries out, oh Absalom, if it was only me instead of you who had died," as he's weeping. And then we also hear about St. Paul, that as he finished his ministry in the area of Tarsus, many of the disciples that he had gathered came around him, they hugged one another, and they began to cry But again, we hear the stories of Abraham, David, and Paul, and among all other people in the Bible, and it's like, once again, but they're human, right? It makes sense. But then if we hear about Jesus crying, it's like, isn't that beneath him? Like, imagine God crying. Like, that interests us, that perplexes us, that we want to learn more, and we want to understand, like, how and why could God cry? What would make God cry? Loss. In our gospel today, Jesus has lost one of his closest friends, Lazarus. We've heard before about the close friendship that Lazarus, as well as his sisters, Martha and Mary, share with Jesus. And upon hearing that Lazarus has died, Jesus is, of course, emotional. But why does Jesus cry? Why does he weep? I think there's three main reasons why. The first reason we can all relate to is that there is this silent fear within all of us that if we show emotion, if we cry, then our tears will mean nothing. It will cause people to think differently about us. For others, it will make people think less of us. It will make us weak, or it will appear that we are weak. But this is why Jesus cries first and foremost. He shows us that tears, emotions, have meaning. It doesn't weaken us. In fact, it fulfills us as human beings. In this moment, Jesus is fully expressing his own humanity by the emotions that he shows. The second reason why Jesus weeps is because he loves. And love always comes at a cost. Whenever we love someone or something in any way, whether it be family or friends or anybody that we come to love in our lives, we know that our lives will be different. Especially, for example, even in romantic relationships. When you meet someone and you enter into a relationship with them, your life will never be the same. You are giving that love to another person. You are allowing yourself to trust that person, to be vulnerable around them, to be honest, and so many other ways. We know that love makes us different. And we know that through the gift of love, we experience God's love for us. We hear this type of love really at funerals. Over almost my 7 years as a priest, I have walked with and counseled numerous families who are preparing for their loved one's funeral mass or funeral service. And as part of my funeral homily, I always make it a point to say that the reason why all of you here who are crying over your mom, your dad, brother, sister, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, friend, it's because it's not only just because you're sad. It's because you loved that person. That person made your life different. That person, by the way they lived their lives, made you want to live life all the more. But you ensure that they will always remain alive in your hearts by carrying on the memories and the traditions and the stories that they gave you. You cry because you love. And now that love, because you love that person so much, now that love has cost you their presence because that they have passed away. But they will always be with you, no matter what. But love can sometimes hurt. Love brings about a suffering. But if we really want to truly love as Jesus does, then we know that suffering will be a natural part. It will come with that love. And then the third reason, and this is the reason I think that's the most important, is that Jesus weeps, Jesus cries, because he does not look down on our heartbreak. You notice what Martha and Mary say. They both say the same statement. They say, Lord, if only you had been here, our brother would not have died. You know what they don't say? They don't say, Lord, do you even care that our brother has died? Because they know that Jesus cares. They know that Jesus loves them. But Jesus is not indifferent to their suffering, just like he's not indifferent to our suffering. Jesus, every time our heart breaks, his sacred heart breaks with us. Every time we cry, he cries with us. You know, I think there's this stigma in our culture today, especially around men, that if men cry, if men show emotion, that somehow makes men weak. It makes them less than. It makes them look pitiful, especially if any of you grew up in a family where perhaps a family member, your father or someone else told you that if you cried, if you showed emotion, that you would be looked upon, or they would look upon you as less than. See, the difference here is that true emotion actually brings forth who we are in a way that we never would think possible. It actually fulfills who we are. There's actually a poet by the name of Washington Irving. He lived back in the 18th century. And in one of his poems, he talked about the immense power of tears. He said, tears carry so much power. They carry with them unsurpassable courage and unbelievable love. In the words of St. Augustine, Jesus weeps, if nothing else, to show us how to weep. He shows us that it's okay to cry. It's okay to show emotion, to not keep everything in all the time, but to express your humanity. And then as we get to the very last line of this gospel, the miracle happens and Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead. Now we imagine the Jewish authorities are looking at this and saying, what kind of game are you playing here? Is this some kind of trick? You honestly expect us to believe that he has been laying in this tomb for 4 days? This is not some ploy to make us look like fools? And in this moment, we hear that many come to believe in Jesus by what has happened. But right after the raising of Lazarus, we hear about Palm Sunday. Next Sunday is Palm Sunday. And we hear right after many came to believe in him, others plotted to kill him. And so for all of us, as we approach this last week of Lent, as we've gone through the emotions of this season, we are about to walk with Jesus to our salvation, to our resurrection. And we will experience what Jesus went through from his triumphant entry into Jerusalem, to the very Last Supper with his disciples, to his betrayal by Judas, to him being arrested, to him being led to be crucified, to the tomb being empty, to him being risen on that third day. As we wrap up this, as we are going through this last leg of Lent, my prayer and my hope for all of you is that you all the more embrace your own humanity as Jesus unites his own humanity to you, so that as we walk through this life, we may all the more understand, know, and believe that Jesus gave up his life so that through our lives and later through our death, we may have life with him forever. Praise be Jesus Christ, now and forever.